Hello everyone, my name is Yana. I am a Google logistics specialist. In the previous video, I posted a graph and drew it by hand, including quadrants. What is the difference between maximum conversions and the target return on ad spend strategy? What are the nuances? How do these two strategies work? I recommend watching it again, and today I would like to show this also on an account in the furniture sales niche. I won't mention the name, and here mainly all the advertising campaigns are focused on maximum conversions. There might be something on maximum conversions as well. Conditionally, we are now making sense of all this. I thought for a long time about how best to present the information to you so that it would be easy to measure. I decided to make it as simple as possible. Maybe it's not super correct and appropriate, but let it be. In short, I drew the same quadrant. Today, it's a bit more even. I took hundreds of numbers here approximately because the maximum number seems to be 73 conversions, and we don't have more than that. I took no less than 15 conversions. So this line probably won't show anything here at all. And I took a 50 for our return on ad spend. Because we have 37 and 5, I thought I would take 100 as well, but that wouldn't be much better for return on ad spend. And here, it's great. And now we will draw a very basic graph. The idea is to find these points, for example, one point at 73, 36, and let's take, for instance, the same 73 and approximately 36, and immediately use a different color. This will be orange 73, 36. Let's place it approximately here, and it will be drawn nicely, like this. Next, we have 46, 14, again just a brand, so I will draw it as 46. I think it will be somewhere around here, and 13, well, it might be close to here, correctly. 46, 13, and 14 earlier correctly 46, 14. 46, 14, 46, 14, see 30, 46 will be 1000 and we are currently delaying this. So let's move on and look at 39. Let it be 40, 24 is correct. 40, 24, 40, let it be somewhere around there. Correct, 40. How many do we have there? 40, 24. Let's take 40. 40 and somewhere around here will be 24. Let's do it schematically so as not to slow down too much. Let it be here. Next, 37, 15 will be shaded in. 37, 15 correct, 10 here, could be 37, 15. 33, 21, 33 UAH will be 33 somewhere here. 20, let's put 1 right here, correctly. 29, 16, 20, well, let it be 29, and here it will be somewhere around 16. Very schematic, very primitive. You can make such beautiful graphs for your video so that everything looks nice. 28, 17. 28, let them prepare 17, 10. Next, we go 27, 17, 20. 7 is here again, 17 will be here. They will overlap. At 24, 25, 24, somewhere up to 25. 19, 14. Let 19 be 19, 10 at 14, let it be here. There. I specifically took conversions greater than 15. Can you, in principle, take all the companies? I did that. We can look into this shaman, for example, if you wish, 19 ended. Right, because we have 13, there are 8. Let's say 13, 8. Let 13 be somewhere here, May 8th, so that it is, where, so 13, 80, 27, let it be 10, and somewhere around 27, as you can see, the pieces that go beyond these lines are becoming fewer and fewer. 8, 6, 8, let it be 8, 6, 6, probably even lower here, 8, 6. Again, we go here, 8, 12. 8 will be 10, 12. And 6, Let's take this big one, let it be 7, and 32, let it be somewhere here for everyone. And somewhere exactly 32. What can we see from this? If you watched the previous videos, we can see how our strategy generally works, specifically the maximum conversion strategy. Most of the advertising campaigns with maximum conversions are conditionally profitable, but due to the small budget in this account, the advertising budgets of these companies are essentially small, and the conversion volumes are also small. Here is our picture, meaning that most of the maximum conversions are generally concentrated in this quadrant, as I described. It all boils down to this area, processing everything else. So, if you want to scale all of this, you definitely need to try to at least roll it over here. Of course, you can try to increase the return on ad spend and other metrics first, but I will now show why this won't work for the client and why you need to start with the basics, and then try to move from this quadrant either up here or directly here, although moving to the third quadrant will be quite challenging, because there are certain aspects to consider. So, look here, all the returns are great. They are all above the norm. Adequate ones, which are needed by most clients, that is, to agree correctly if they are 37 and so on. But the question here is that some conversions are most likely calculated incorrectly because I saw something like 13 purchases from 2 clicks. Overall, this analytics will be blurred, so we are considering it purely technically. These are just numbers that we are simply analyzing, meaning the first stage is to try to scale this up, because all companies are operating in this segment. At the same time, I conducted a very interesting analysis for myself. I roughly estimated the price range here and divided the products into 5 segments, although they can be divided into more. The number of segments depends on the total number of products. In total, there are 16,000 products ready for display. The items highlighted in orange are those that have achieved more than 0 conversions. I included all these values in the analysis, shown in orange. If you know the data-driven attribution model, it can count 100. Conversion these have number of conversions 110 and others. These are the same ones they are called, which will take a long time to reach us based on the data. It is very difficult to get rid of them. But conditionally, if I even take those product positions that made more than 0 conversions, that is, 0.01 and so on, then out of 16,000. The total number of products is very large, which in principle is somehow converting, considering even the marked ones. That is, the latest product assortment does not work at all. And this is also confirmation of working mainly with very narrow budgets. Or perhaps the advertiser does not have the ability to spend more budget or maximum conversions. This is its specificity here. You always get great return on ad spend, because this square proportionally starts to increase or change its scale as soon as you start scaling in one direction or another. So, I also calculated the sales there, the family that came out, and once, in fact, that's what I got. This segment is about the monomer of the shaft 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as I will just apply it here now. But essentially this is approximately how it happened 1.5 I had segment 1, it would fall, where I have sales here. Conditionally I draw a conditional line there, action 20 this and few sales relative to others, always relative to others. It is always analyzed relative to the analytics within the accounts on the standards that are on the market. Conditionally let it be so. We had 20 sales in the cheap series, which is relatively low compared to 49, obviously. At 4,900%, it's very good, so we can't say it's bad, right? But if we compare it to others, there's a segment that gave a better return. Here, I'm looking at 49 returns. Certainly, if we just follow the same scheme, it turns out that this return falls somewhere. Let's assign it a color. Let it be 4. This single one should fall right here. Here, I'll write it down. It will be 1. Here is one example right now. Because it has few sales, it is even closer to this lower quadrant, because if we take, say, 20, It hits exactly 20 sales, right? The return on ad spend is 49 everywhere, but then the graph changes conditionally. It is located here to draw this new quadrant. Moving on, if we take the second price range conditionally, it has about 1,500 to 3,500 here with 90 sales, which is a lot, and the return on ad spend is still in second place, so this second one will be somewhere around here. The points will be drawn here on the graph. I place them simply and schematically here. In what context I have them here, I might tell you the whole story later, or maybe show a photo or picture on the screen. If it's not visible, I'll ask the editor to overlay the photo. I created the same quadrants and plotted the same points, like 20 and 41. 277, 90, 100 and vertically profitable made me reach a maximum of 2,363 and a minimum of 49. And I got a 1 there, down there. This cell here is a 3. I got approximately a 3 in the price range. Somewhere around here, it came out in the middle, neither here nor there. The streak here shows 52 sales, with profitability in the middle relative to others. The price range of 4 has once again landed right here, at 4. It's still here next to me, and I'm also drawing it schematically. Then somewhere around here, I'll attach a photo of what I drew. Let it be conditional for you, and we have the 5th segment left. It will be the 5th. If we look at this table, here are 41 sales, many and highly profitable, so it will be somewhere around here, but there aren't many sales. So the 5 came out somewhere around here, meaning approximately here. That's it. What I'm trying to show here are the conditional ones. If we take as a base some more or less these are, in short, resources that can be used to move, for example, this quadrant that we discussed to move here. For example, to at least stay within some boundaries, and what can allow for a fairly quick move. For example, this segment, this one, and the one remains as it is. It practically leaves nothing schematically here. What I told her, regarding the relatively low price range, it always returns to the first quadrant. It can be attempted to move it to the 4th quadrant so that it becomes a driving force. But it all comes down to whether you need it or not. In this case, you can try to do it because 49, so we think it's low relative to other metrics in this account, but it is not low in terms of some average values across Ukraine, such as, for example. The essence of this video is that, for example, using a real account based on a schematically simple and straightforward analysis, you can accurately determine how effectively or ineffectively a strategy is working and the maximum conversions or profitability in this particular case, which can serve as conditional focal categories, or how this can be achieved. I brought this up at the point of the average check, but most likely typology might play a role here because the campaigns are still partially segmented by type, not by check. It's not too bad to segment by these types. Conditionally, it's great for audience targeting, but most likely these segmentations will need to be further divided and broken down in order to try at least one segment to move it somewhere into one of the quadrants. This idea of dividing into these quadrants kind of led me to how to describe it, not that, perhaps. In short, it's a kind of demonstration mechanic showing how maximum conversions and target profitability work relative to this chart. Conditionally, it could be represented as follows. When we start with small budgets aiming for maximum conversions, according to these quadrants, it might go something like this: maximum conversions. That is, accordingly, the lower the cost per conversion we want to set, the lower the cost per conversion here, because we want to pay less and earn more. Therefore, revenue is prioritized here. If we want to increase and boost conversion, we need to raise the cost per conversion, which means increasing the expenditure to move into this quadrant. As you can see, getting into this quadrant using maximum conversion will be quite difficult. I'm not saying that it is exactly moving along this trajectory, approximately. It could go from here, a bit lower, a bit higher. Profitability, on the other hand, goes a bit in the opposite direction. It usually follows an ascending curve, contrary to how CPA works. Let it be CPA. I'll definitely label this as CPA for her, and let this be ROAS. It's not nice to draw such things for Pidsatku. We look, that is, right here, when we set a high profitability. That is, we set a high profitability. We want to cut a certain number of constraints. We will have proportionally fewer units and revenue. As soon as we start reducing our profitability, reducing profitability is the same as if we were increasing the expense side. That is, a decrease in profitability means an increase in costs. A decrease in ROAS, let's put it this way, ROAS leads to an increase in costs. Just like that. Just as an increase in CPA leads to higher costs. Increase. Sapiki. Oh, sapiki on the Hobota sapiki. Ike, razapelfold. To decrease to increase sapeki leads to treating also costs. So, if we want to get into this conditional quadrant and even touch this quadrant, you see, it all logically follows. If we want to move in terms of profitability, we go upward here. But partially, it is possible to delve into this segment of the quadrant because some categories will need to be taught to generate proper profitability first, and only then, to focus on specifics. So, this is the variability. Initially, you can go here, but it depends on the initial data we start with. If our profitability is already on the edge of adequacy, it will likely be very difficult to immediately jump along this profitability arc, and we need to first get into this second quadrant to somehow turn it into a more profitable thing. What do average checks have to do with it? Well, conditionally, what do they have to do with it? Because your average checks, with an emphasis on one or the other, will determine how easier it is, and through what means certain results can be achieved. Why? Because, for example, we have a product. Here in this account there isn't, well, let's say it's around 700 hryvnias, roughly, and there it's something like 160, something like that. The minimum starting position that is in the account. And there she is, sitting in some campaign that isn't even at the top in terms of conversions. We can roughly take, for example, a product for 2,000 hryvnias, or, for instance, let's make it directly on this account. Here we have a campaign that has generated the most conversions. We go into this campaign. We go into the products. My products will all be blurred, so you won't see much. But conditionally, what do I want to demonstrate? You can roughly estimate for yourself. Which of the checks generates the most conversions? This seems to be our second segment. Let's take a look here. This is the top advertisement for the campaign. Let's see. I am filtering here by conversions. Well, let it be more than one conversion. Let's take a column. Conversion, conversion, conversion. Let's take more than one. I don't want to take zeros, for example, 0.0 something, although we can take them. Look, so you see. The scale situationally, look, 0.10, 0.20, well, let them be. More than zero, conversion. What do we see here? 3, maybe 1.5. Here's the check, 6, 2, 3. We need to sit down and sum it up. At first glance, it is somewhere around 3.5. For example, we take 45 positions here. All of them supposedly made some conversions, although in reality, they did not make these conversions. There are many halves here, but we can roughly calculate it this way according to this attribution model. What can we do? We can add the same price and, for example, more. Like I have here, what? Remember, 1,500 hryvnias. In this campaign, how many conversions do I have? A total of 5 plus 2 to 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's say there are 10 conversions in total, right? Then I take more than 1,500 and take the price. Less, equal, let it be. How much do I have there? 3,500. Right. What do we have here? 12, 15, let it be 318. Plus 18. Well, in short, there's a considerable amount here. You see, 32, and also here is this amount of conversions. So this mid-price range is generating the main expense for me. For example, in this campaign, most likely with a high degree of probability, because if I choose more, for example, just 3,500, most likely, you see, I have no conversions at all. So this mid-price range is generating the main output for me. This is the average price range. And the average price range is numbered for us. 3,500 is exactly number 2. Here it is. See, here is the second tier. That is, a top advertising campaign that achieves both profitability and volume. So primarily through the second price range. This way, you can find what might serve as the generator of a particular story. Because in some accounts, a certain price range can just act as a money eater. It can simply consume money, provide low profitability, and not deliver the desired results. The same scheme can be applied in the context of price and type of product, because depending on the type of product and who you want to sell it to, it means a lot. And this quadrant also follows the same principles. Regarding the type of product, which type of product is in which quadrant, allowing you to cross over. Enter the fourth quadrant, and possibly, if they are in question of profitability, move first to the second, or immediately to the third quadrant. In general, the reason I decided to make this video and show an example is because people had questions about how to better achieve profitability. Specifically, what level of profitability should be set in this case. I mentioned that I do not recommend inflating profitability based on the fact that you see. So, for example, if we have profitability in this company, let's say it's 20 or whatever. Well, how much is it here? 36. Assigning the same profitability or making it significantly higher makes absolutely no sense. This is because it is an average number that we simply observe as a fact. And this is 36, so what are we doing? If we want, look. The point here shifts to profitability only. Focusing solely on profitability can cover more quadrants, be more extensive, and most likely highly beneficial. But if we just abruptly switch to profitability now and set the same 36, we will stay right here because we haven't preserved this principle. To move over here, we need to maintain profitability. So, we will stay here. Moreover, when we determine the actual profitability, we are likely to drop significantly in terms of units. In other words, we are sliding down somewhere even to this point. I don't know, maybe some miracles are happening in your advertising accounts. I don't know, I do this based on a sample of a large number of accounts that you manage, the same ones on the board, you test them, and it leads to certain results. I don't recommend setting it up this way. But there are guys who actually recommend that after reaching the maximum conversion, you take this campaign. That worked at maximum conversion, and then just, bam, you add some percentage on top. In order to do this, the advertising budget needs to be increased proportionally several times over just to maintain any kind of ratio. The advertising campaign will take longer than usual to adapt and calculate the options for achieving this. And this will most likely set you back a few steps. Will they be critical? No, most likely, in this format, if you set it up, you will immediately try to roll it in here. For example, from this point, you will want to move directly here. Not a bad option, but remember about quantity. And the income here may not be entirely proportionally beneficial for you, especially in the initial periods, because these things will drop significantly. Usually, if we want to highlight that fact, we need to approach this profitability line in a slightly different context. How much is it? In percentage terms, in this case, to respond, well, darn, I'll tell you all the company's secrets. And by watching these videos, everyone will start using these fancy phrases, like after consulting specialists, then clients come to them, speaking my words, but from other specialists, with some things a bit twisted and incorrect. Therefore, it would not be quite appropriate for me to say how it feels to move in this way. But the principles remain the same. That is, if you set such profitability. Then, Googlers, for example, write about it, stating that if you follow their guidelines, as they write, on foreign resources. Many clients complain that after they switch to the target trust strategy, their performance drops significantly. Of course, because people don't know how profitability should be set. According to your manual, Google doesn't write a manual on how to set profitability. He only writes manuals, set such a large budget and give him time. In some manuals, he writes 4 weeks, in some he writes a week, in some 12, and in some 6. In all manuals, the term is always written differently, let it learn. You just give the money and let it learn. A very cool option for those projects that have immediately allocated a test budget for this whole endeavor. They are ready to invest in it. It's very great, cool, and there will be results from it. It's a 50-50 situation. There were times when clients came in who were spending $10,000, while others had significantly less. It's different every time. That's the whole story. Therefore, it doesn't make sense to assign it such a high value overall, especially at such high profitability rates if they are indeed real. 36,000% is a lot. 60, is it 36,000? Right, 1,000 if I can't. How much is it? 36,000%. Right, that is 36,000%. That's a lot. Oh, or 3,600. God, I'm already confused by this. Please correct me then. So, this is a very high indicator. Some people just aim for a perfect 10 and think, wow, that's great. Well, these high indicators are due to many factors, but conditionally. One of them is the maximum conversions, which always works on it. Better for profitability. Therefore, it is not advisable to immediately state such a fact here. How is it better to conduct a test in this case? It is better to conduct a test with a transition to profitability on a range, or it can be done most easily. But since, for example, we have an advertising campaign, it made 73 conversions, its profitability is excellent, it is in this quadrant. Here it is. But if you look at the distribution of impressions, most of the products just don't work here. If we simply filter by impressions, here, we have a total of 2,000 product items. 2,000, right. And the main focus is literally on 10,000 impressions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 to 10 product positions. You see, up to 10 product positions, relative to other products, receive a significant number of impressions. As for the rest, I don't know. Just take 483 impressions and divide by 30 days. You get a lot of sales, but it is very unlikely. Most likely, your tests will be the least painful for advertising accounts if you conduct them on products that have not been shown at all or have been shown very little in such a concept. And take what you have, analyze it by types, by these quadrants, to determine which type of product falls into which quadrant. Combine the type of product in the context of the price range, because profitability is always correlated with the average check you will be using. He also participates in calculating this entire story. For example, on more budget-friendly options, profitability is always overstated, while on more expensive ones, it is slightly lower on purpose to give them priority because more can be spent on higher checks, and there is a margin in these prices for conversions. And test this strategy, this option there, rather than just flipping the switch in one campaign to another. A typical strategy is target profitability, which is fundamentally different from maximum conversion. This is maximum conversion, but profitability can fluctuate across all quadrants. The likelihood that these landing points and profitability will be beneficial for you depends solely on this statistics and analytics, specifically which segment had the highest sales. And it's not just like that, as I analyzed. But the hedgehog also considers this graph. She is more packed with information. She compares them there. She sees an even larger volume of information. I've been here 100 times. You describe all of this to me. It was all scribbles. There wasn't even any white space, any room. So, you need to try to do this. You can just go ahead and switch the entire campaign to profitability. But you probably won't like it. even considering that the maximum conversion in these ratios is 280 hryvnias. Out of 519, it is still somewhat incorrect. Because achieving maximum conversion requires certain budget to conversion cost ratios. So, if you just want to increase conversions here, you simply need to try pushing the budget, because you missed the conversion by raising the CPA, but you didn't increase the expenditure. There are also specific nuances in this whole story. Maximum conversion is very sensitive to this. With a budget of approximately $8 to $10, as most recommend, it can start generating very cost-effective conversions within a certain price range. If we just get into some non-inclusive range, not fitting into this price range, the proportion immediately changes. The budget is multiplied on average by 2 to 2.5, so the cost per conversion is not conditionally $10 or less, but $10 multiplied by 2 or even 2.5. That's why you are surprised at the maximum conversion and why it performs so poorly, and the profitability was better. Some people argue that the maximum conversion was okay, the profitability was poor. You need to sit down, dig into your account, and take a look. In short, I recommend the following to this advertiser. You need to analyze these quadrants, going beyond the analysis that I have conducted. You know your campaigns better as you set them up, the sequence of things you did. You also understand all of this. You are aware of the product assortment there. What is better? What is worse? At the very least, you should create another similar quadrant here. Create quadrants and analyze them separately by types. And then overlay these types in the context of prices. Because I don't have much time to just sit and analyze this account and create all these tables to visually demonstrate to you. But when you have a trained eye, you immediately see it in a different format. And in your head, you can schematically arrange all of this. That is, I see it like this in my head. And when you translate to this, it naturally involves additional operations that require time. You can do the same. See what allows you to conditionally scale, in which aspects, with which combinations, whether in terms of profitability or cost per conversion, something works better for you or not. Basically, there are advertising campaigns here that are profitable. I don't remember if I checked whether they were working. But let's take, for example, this maximized conversion value. Let's look at the value here. There are 33 conversions. Whether the strategy was changed in the last 30 days, bidding strategy, or not, it seems not, only the budget. So, it has been working for at least a certain period. For all these strategies, it seems like it's just the budget. It increased. Simply its budget increased. Try to see how it works, what it focuses on, more or less. It is immediately apparent here that the costs are significantly higher. The costs per conversion are much higher, but the profitability does not suffer significantly from this. And now let's take a look if we see all these conversions where the average check mainly plays a role. Well, even to the naked eye, it's immediately clear that the check there is 3,500 or even up to 7,500 in pieces, but here 3, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 already prevails, which is significantly more expensive, entering a more expensive segment. Therefore, this strategy might work quite well with such a budget here and provide relatively high profitability. I don't seem to remember the size here. By the way, this campaign operates without any profitability limitations at all. And why does it yield such high profitability? There are several reasons for this. First, the account already has analysts, and there are enough statistics on high profitability. Therefore, for example, it is easy to smooth from maximum conversion to another type of conversion. And the advantage of this budget, which is within that price range, remember, we said that your price also participates in all these ratios. Conditionally, it affects how many products are here. And there are also 5,000 products here, which overall affects this picture of the distribution of conversion impressions, C, and proportionally different performance. This is not a plus for this campaign. It is more likely a minus because, if you see, yes, profitability can be excellent, wonderful. But it is achieved not through effective targeting of the advertising campaign, but because the check is higher than just the cost part. You see, here he shows 809 conversions, but 0.65. I'm not sure if that's a full conversion, right? Maybe this 1.65 is actually drawn on some 1.80 there with something plus 1.80, for example. Oh, 0.80, something plus 0.80, and it came out to be 1.65. There might have been one sale here, but it's not 809 hryvnias, rather 1336 conversions might be considered. For example, it costs 1336 hryvnias. But if we divide 13,000 divided by 1336, the profitability is already 9.7, not 13.99. By the way, this is already a problem of the attribution model, because here, for example, seeing these almost zero conversions, I calculated approximately. From one conversion, even with the same halves, you see, the difference is quite significant. Somewhere it is quite significant in pieces. Here I completely discounted 13 conversions because one position with 2 clicks supposedly made 13 conversions, which is highly unlikely. Either this person ordered 13 times, but it is somehow not specific, not standard, so it cannot be said that it is statistically significant. Here is the analytics, and you should try to see all of this and determine what will help you grow further. The strategy is excellent, and here is the profitability. It can handle it. If they try to maximize conversions, it's likely that the cost per conversion can be reduced, but the volume will definitely drop. In order to determine the profitability that needs to be set, it is necessary to analyze the average values of all these profitabilities and try to slightly reduce it. I won't say by how much it will decrease in percentage terms in this case, as it wouldn't be quite appropriate. We need to experiment with these values. I have seen campaigns here with even 1,000% profitability, it seems. Here's 1,300, for example. Right, 1,300. Let's take a look. It's 1,300, and let's scroll. Damn. Come on, 1,300. But she isn't working very actively. Just like that. They are trying to increase traffic on it. By the way, let's take a look at it. Maybe there was something related to the bidding strategy on it. No, there is no bidding here at all. Here they try to increase the budget to 168. Well, 168. Here it's 140. The problem is the small budget for such high profitability. This budget is very small. It won't work like that. It's thanks to Google that these high-value metrics are significantly increasing. If you increase the budget here, it will become slightly positive. I don't see any bidding here, definitely. Well, we had a CPA of 1,300. But the ROAS is very low. Well, let it be May 30th chatting in May. Chatting in May, chatting in May. What do we have here? ROA has slightly decreased. July 10th. What happened on July 10th? There are some filters here. If something was excluded, it means that the budget for what remains will be slightly higher. 1,300. And so, probably, someone was excluded. The budgets for everyone else increased a bit, and conversions started happening. On July 18th, they reduced this budget to 77 hryvnias. Well, this approach works for maximum conversion, but it doesn't work for profitability. As long as you stick to such low budgets, you won't achieve anything. You want to achieve 1,000 in profitability, but you can't even ensure advertising campaigns on a small scale. It all seems super attractive here, but your problem is that you don't give it any chance to grow. You need to try. But here, the budget is also important. The budget also plays a role, because if you delve into the settings, you will find something called the budget allocation method. It is uniform. You can't achieve very good results with a uniform budget of 170 hryvnias per day, because what else do we have here? The average cost per click for us is 3 hryvnias. So, why don't you want to give me the opportunity To add more metrics, this is Google. I don't need any bones. Here the traffic increased. Here we simply increased the budget. CPC. Let's go with CPC. The CPC. Here hasn't changed, and here it has even dropped a bit. This is a signal that this traffic might not be going exactly where it needs to go. There are just a few of these investments, so it looks more attractive this way. But the cost per conversion year shows 286, although we saw much higher for the products. However, it doesn't change the essence anyway. A slightly different principle worked here. In principle, my analysis is roughly like this. Test on some products that are not an active component of any performance work. Focus on those that are barely active in your advertising account, and you will be testing and trying to roll over. Profitability requires a larger budget for costs. More. Increasing CPIK also involves increasing costs. But CPIK, it behaves a bit differently with these costs. It can stop at a certain level, conditionally. But it is not necessary if your advertising campaigns are performing below CPA. If you think you can grow simply by increasing this CPA without changing these costs, then this is a false statement. If you are increasing CPA, you need to proportionally increase costs, otherwise it becomes a pointless endeavor. If you increase the CPA size, you are not telling the system to spend more, because if you want to move along this line, you need to enter new auctions. New auctions mean new impressions. And new impressions are always associated with increased costs. Always. The question is, how will you ensure the increase in costs? What will you use to increase them? By excluding a certain product, as you did with the filters, impressions went to some assortment. Will you increase this by simply raising the daily budget? Or will you ensure this by reducing profitability? Or proportionally increase the CPA and ramp up the costs? That's another question. Try, test. There are no ideal values that would be used exclusively for Ukraine. They simply do not exist. There are ideal qualities that need to be used. You need to adjust your account. Each account is unique. As strange as it sounds, just as people are unique, an account is unique. This is because the AI learns from your analytics. She creates her charts, her distributions, models, and other unique customizations. That's what Google says is the cool thing about performances, because they use artificial intelligence, and for each advertiser, it can ensure the achievement of the results they want.